Planning to sell your home in Ottawa? Well, don't waste thousands on these items that buyers will not pay for. So, the average Ottawa homeowner spends thousands of dollars on upgrades per year. Now, there are some upgrades that make sense, but a lot of them don't actually give you a return on investment when you go to resell your property. Renovations can improve enjoyment and potentially add value, but some upgrades just don't pay off. The big key is your timeline. If you are upgrading something and you plan to sell in 2 to 5 years, the likelihood of you getting a return on that is typically low. Versus staying 10 plus years, those upgrades typically do end up helping you in the long run on resale value. So, some top rules before you start upgrading, right? So, don't overspend your neighborhood. So, if you're in a $500,000 townhome in Orleans and you have a $100,000 kitchen, guess what? Nobody's paying you $600,000 just because you have a nicer kitchen. That is typically the rule of thumb where you don't want to be overspending because you can just for a home that is not going to increase in that much value, right? So, like, let's say you have a beautiful chef's kitchen and you're in a regular townhome where they're typically selling between 5 to 525, 550 in some cases. Well, you having that massive kitchen is not going to add that much value because somebody can just go buy the next home for 500,000, 525, whatever it is, and just make a kitchen of their own taste, and they probably don't want to spend $100,000 on a kitchen. So keep that in mind. Avoid borrowing. Anything that's used for upgrades, I typically recommend to either pay in cash or pay in full, and do not use any lines of credit on that. Typically, it is not a good return because you're paying extra interest and just adding on top of the overall investment to begin with. So focus on your timeline. Upgrades for enjoyment and upgrades for resale value are two different things. So upgrades for enjoyment could be like things like adding a hot tub, which we know doesn't typically add resale value, and sometimes it actually is negatively impacting a property. Whereas things like hardwood floors, removing carpet and changing to hardwood floors, or adding really nice window treatments like, zebra blinds or California blinds and things like that. Those are items that will retain value over a long period of time. Whereas something like hot tub or, just any things that are just for enjoyment purposes will not add value because those things for enjoyment purposes typically require repairs and end up costing the new buyer more in the long run. So keep those things in mind when you are putting on any upgrades. So some projects that don't often add value in Ottawa are going to be like high-end landscaping, smart home lighting, and swimming pools. Now, in some homes, they can make the difference, but it's going to depend, right? A swimming pool can add value if you have a large lot and it's adding more and more to the property and adding it, but it has to make sense, right? Like if you're adding a swimming pool into a small single home with an already small backyard, you're going to push away some buyers because some buyers don't care for a swimming pool because 6 months out of the year we have winter. The other part is they have to maintain it and pay somebody to maintain that pool if they're not handy with pools and stuff like that, right? So another one, smart home lighting. I actually do like this feature and I do think it adds some value, but it doesn't need to be throughout the home, right? If you're going to spend 10 to 20 to 30,000 to make it a smart home, we're adding Google speakers into the ceilings, adding smart home lighting fixtures, adding smart light bulbs, all this and that. Like this can add up quite a bit, and the next buyer might not be willing to just pay for that, right? Like some buyers don't care. It's just simple to them. They just flick a switch as opposed to having to go on their phone and just pressing a bunch of buttons to make it super smart, right? Now, they are very nice and they do give a lot of enjoyment and they help out, but let's say if you're looking at a townhome, are you going to pay an extra 10 to 15 or 20,000 just because a home has smart lighting features? I highly doubt that, right? The other thing too is high-end landscaping like pools, ponds, gardens, water features. All that is really, really nice. But is somebody going to be willing to pay for that? I doubt it, right? I really think that having a nice and clean landscape is really good. And anything over the top is going to be personal features, right? So things that you're personally attached to. So if you're doing a crazy garden, adding this for, you're growing tomatoes in one section, then you have beautiful flowers like that. That's great and all, but what if somebody doesn't want to maintain that? What if somebody that's buying it is somebody that travels, 4 to 6 months out of the year and they don't even have the time to enjoy that, right? They're not going to be willing to pay for that. So always, any upgrade that you're doing, you have to picture what is the next buyer going to be willing to do with the property? Are they going to be wanting to do that? Now, all this doesn't make sense at all if you're keeping the home for 10 to 15 years. If you're keeping the 10 to 15 years, then fully enjoy it because you have nothing to worry about. The next buyer is not going to be for another 10 to 15 years. Now, if you're just in a transition where, you have one child right now and you guys are in a townhome and you're thinking of doing all these upgrades, but you might actually be outgrowing the home in the next 2 to 3 years, well, then don't spend all that money there. Just save that money, put it in some sort of investment account or do something with it where it's going to grow the money so that you can be prepped for the next move. Because typically, if you're a young family in a townhome, you're going to be outgrowing that very quickly, right? And then you're going to be wanting spending more money on a bigger home where you can enjoy yourselves better as a family and grow into that property. So that's what I always recommend, is looking at your timelines before you start planning any high-end renovations or upgrades or projects. If you're thinking about selling in Ottawa and want to make the right upgrades, click the link below to book a free consultation with me. The next one is solar panels. Solar panels are low return on investments. It typically takes 6 to 12 years to get a return on your investment in Ottawa, but it's great for lower hydro bills. Again, this is a super huge timeline thing. If you plan to stay in the property for 20 years, 15 to 20 years, this might be a good opportunity to do that, but it does take some upfront costs. So keep that in mind. And then also, if you plan to lease it or finance in some sort of way, lease options can typically deter buyers because it's a cost at the end when they plan to purchase the property. They have to either take over the lease from you or they're going to ask you to buy it out, which is going to lower your bottom line on what you want to get for your property, right? Now, another one that I'm kind of 50-50 on, I like this one typically, but it really is dependent on the type of property you have. So this one is sunrooms or screened porches. Sunrooms, if they're 4-season, they actually add really good value because they give the home a complete different feel. Now, if it's just a screened-in porch and it's 2 seasons max, where it's like spring and summer that you're using them, but they have no heating purpose whatsoever, that actually might deter buyers because it becomes a waste of space, right? It's a screened-in porch that might have some walls around it, but no heating whatsoever. It becomes a useless room that's taking up space in potentially a backyard that they could be using for a better usage, right? And that's not going to give you a good return on investment because somebody's going to typically want to either take it down altogether or they're going to need to spend money to make it a 4-season sunroom or screened-in porch, right? So this is one. It doesn't add much value right now, but if it is a fully 4-season sunroom, screened-in porch, it is great value and it does give the home quite a different character and different appeal. Now, this one is one of my favorites. The reason why it's my favorite is because it's one of the most important ones. This one is unusual paint colors. So bold, dark colors, you want to avoid those. You want to have neutral tones, something simple, something easy where buyers, when they come in, they know it's, everything's clean, everything's, it doesn't have to be like white, white, white. It can be like nice neutral tones, like a nice creamy beige, like a nice off-white, even some lighter, different colors. But anything dark and bold is going to make it feel super small, super dark. It's not going to give that welcoming appeal. It's going to make it as if they're walking into something that's not their home, especially if they don't like those colors. If they don't like those colors, they could be walking right out. They're going to be like, you know what? It's going to cost me 5 to 10 to 15 grand to fully repaint this home. I'm not doing that. And I've seen people walk away from homes just because of the paint. And that's one thing you want to avoid. If you use dark colors, if it's 1 or 2 rooms, it's not a huge deal. People can get around that. But if it's throughout the home and you have really awkward colors that only you like, that's fine. You loved it, you enjoyed it, but the next buyer is probably not going to like them as much as you did, and they're not going to want to pay for that upfront. Next one is carpet flooring. Carpet flooring is something that a lot of buyers are hesitant against. One is because a lot of buyers do have allergies. It's Carpet flooring is not something we can avoid. Typically, the second floor does come with carpets for pretty much almost every home in Ottawa, depending on the area and all that. But hardwood on the main floor is typically standard, but basement and second floor are typically carpet. Now, if you have updated that and taken out the carpet, that's good, right? Sometimes if you're like in a newer development and the carpet you've gotten the basic carpet and it's a shaggy carpet where it doesn't hold itself together too much, I actually sometimes recommend even just replacing that carpet, because replacing carpet with carpet is pretty cheap, and it doesn't cost too much money, and it makes it look really, really fresh, which can help you with the sale of your home. Or if if you work with a good general contractor or you have somebody that does renos for you, putting in laminate flooring will help that much better. The biggest thing, if you're changing the flooring from carpet to laminate, from carpet to hardwood, whatever, I always say try and match the flooring with whatever is already in the property. So let's say if you have a beige or like some sort of wood like this, you want to try and match that as close as possible on all levels. You don't want to have like a gray floor on the second level, beige floor on the main level, and then in the basement you have like a dark oak. You don't want to have three different floor mixtures. You want to have it all unison, all in one piece, so that it seems like it's all been done properly, right? Some thought was put into it. It wasn't just, okay, we got a good deal on this flooring, so we slapped it upstairs. Then we got a Black Friday deal on the basement flooring, so we slapped that downstairs. It's just it doesn't work cohesively. I always recommend, even if it's hardwood on the main floor, but you're putting vinyl or laminate on the basement or second floor, try and match it as close as possible. You can typically get really good matches. It just takes a little bit of time to look for it. Again, that little bit of time is going to actually give you a good return on your investment, as opposed to mismatching floors is not going to give you a good return on investment, because some of those people will actually be taking that flooring out to be able to put matching floors. So keep that in mind. And if it's carpet, make sure you get a good high quality carpet that is not going to show wear and tear easily. Like, I know a lot of new homes come with like a pretty basic standard carpet where you have a computer chair on there, and within 6 months you need to replace the carpet. So typically a nice good rug will do that, will be helpful with that, and will show much nicer in the new property. Now, the next one is combining and converting rooms. So I've seen some sellers combine two bedrooms, like a master bedroom and a third or fourth bedroom, and put them together to make it one big master ensuite. Typically, that does not help with resale value. It actually deters some families. So if you have a 4-bedroom home and you turned it into 3 bedrooms with one extra large bedroom, that's not going to help, because you're lessening the amount of people that can live in the property, which is deterring some buyers away. Some people are only looking for 4-bedroom properties, or if you have a 5-bedroom home and you're bringing it down to 4, again, you're just reducing the amount of people that can live in there, and you're reducing your buyer pool, right? If somebody's looking for the typical buyer is looking for 3 or more bedrooms, depending on the size of the home it is, but it's typically 3 or 4 bedrooms. And if they're looking for 3 plus, they're not going to pay less for 4 bedrooms. They're going to pay less for 3 bedrooms with one extra large bedroom, right? It's going to be an awkward layout to begin with. So try not to convert any bedrooms like that. I've seen some people convert garages into man caves and extra dining rooms and stuff like that. That I would say is on a case by case basis. Like, if you have a man cave, like a specialty thing in the garage, I can understand that. I've seen that before. It's not the end of the world, but it does not also help with resale value, because you want to, like, somebody might not, like, if it's a single person that's moving in there and they don't care for a man cave, they're not going to want to pay for it, right? So typically they're going to be spending money just to rip that out or put it back to a regular garage. So keep in mind, anything that you're adjusting like that, where you're changing the geography of the home, essentially, you want to avoid those things, because it's not going to help with your resale value, right? You don't want to be sticking out like a sore thumb, like you're the only one like this. Yes, it's rare because you're the only one, but how many people are you appealing to? If you're not appealing to enough people, you're not going to be able to sell as quickly as some other homes where they didn't do those conversions. So keep that in mind. Now, this one is something I see very, very often. This is high-end updates in a modest home. So if you have, again, we talked about this earlier, like, let's say you have a single home that's typically around $750,000, and you're putting in a super high-end finish, like an ultra-modern kitchen. You're updating the bathrooms. You're putting in floating toilets with, the Japanese toilets where they have massagers and this and that and all this stuff. You want to avoid those items, because those are really not going to give you a return on investment, right? Like, if your home is $50,000 or $75,000 above what the typical market value is for your home, for the other homes in that area, just because you have these crazy updates that you thought were really nice, it's not going to help you in the future, right? Why would somebody pay to get these items that they might not care for, but they can get the same home, same layout, without having to spend for the extra upgrades, when they can pick and choose their own upgrades for that same price and then just do them later? That's typically what I see. The high end in modest homes is a huge no-no in my books. I definitely don't recommend it. Now, again, this is going to depend. If you're doing this and you plan to live in the home 20 years, 15 years, sure, whatever. Like, enjoy it to the fullest and spend the money. But even then, I still don't recommend it, because you don't know what's going to happen in the next 15 to 20 years, what your situation is going to be. Your life situation can change at any point. So you doing these upgrades could be a complete waste of money altogether, and I really don't recommend it. But again, don't do anything you don't enjoy, right? If you want to enjoy these things, do it, but just keep it in the back of your head that, hey, this might not be a huge return on my investment. And it's if you can live with the fact that you're spending the money without getting any return and it's just going to be expense, then that's your prerogative. Now, my closing thoughts. Again, I've gone through some of these things, and I know some people have done already these things, but your home is your home first, right? So do it for enjoyment, but just in the back of your head, just always think resale value. Not doesn't have to, your whole life doesn't revolve around resale value, but yes, enjoy it, but make sure that you have some sense of, okay, like, do I really need to buy this $2,000 toilet that I might not get return on investment on? No, maybe I can spend $500 for a really nice, comfy toilet, whatever, right? Ottawa buyers like love functional spaces, neutral finishes, and updates that match the neighborhood. So if your neighborhood has an overall value, and you've seen some of these homes, they all look very similar. Well, then keep it the same way, because you don't need to spend the extra money, because the likelihood of you getting a massive return compared to the other homes is very low. If you want help knowing which upgrades to do, which upgrades not to do, feel free, send me a DM or drop a comment in below and just say sell first, and we will go jump on a call and I'll get you all the information you need before you do anything drastic to your home and are ready for sale properly when you decide to sell your home. I'll see you guys in the next video. If you like this content, please feel free to like, subscribe, and follow for more. I'll see you in the next video. Have a great day.